Good afternoon, and welcome to the Boise Metro Chamber's Legislative Update Series. We apologize for the delay, just a few technical difficulties, but we are here and we're so excited to host our third episode of the sixth series. So I'm Tori Thomas, the Community and Government Affairs Manager here at the Chamber and your host for today's event. The Boise Metro Chamber is Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber and represents nearly 2,000 members. We're only able to provide current events and educational content because of our members and their investment in our community. Before I introduce our panelists today, I want to thank Optum Idaho for their generous support. Please enjoy this quick video from our sponsor.
Social media held the promise of bringing us closer together, but in many ways, it's made us even more isolated. Social media apps are designed to keep us engaged, even addicted. And seeing so many people on their perfect vacation or living their seemingly perfect lives can feel depressing. Optum and Hello Idaho can help with tips on how to recognize and address both the mental and physical downsides of social media. Learn more at optumidaho.com.
Alrighty, well, for today's legislative update, I'd like to welcome Representative Julie Yamamoto.
Hello.
Hello. Alrighty, Representative Julie Yamamoto is married to Leland Sasaki. She graduated from the College of Idaho and received her doctorate in education leadership at the University of Idaho. She served as a teacher and a school administrator for 32 years and now serves District 11 in the Idaho legislature. She is the chair of the House Education Committee and also serves on the Transportation and Defense and Resources and on Conservation committees. Thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for dealing with all the tech issues that we got going on.
Well, I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, no patience, no apology necessary. Well, before we start the questions today, how are you doing? Other than tech issues and the flurry of that, how's the legislature going for you?
Well, actually, I think it was so appropriate it would be like that because that's how this session has felt like, that there's just all of these technical difficulties and you think you're moving along one way and suddenly an RS gets pulled back and it gets completely changed. You think a library bill is on the House floor and it gets pulled back into committee and they're working through that. And on the other hand, I know some people have been grousing about that, but to me, that actually says that the process works, that when we see that something isn't as it should be, that people are willing to, instead of bullying ahead with something, that they're willing to pull it back and for us to take another look and try to make sure that whatever we're putting out there is worthy of our consideration, that people have thoughtfully worked through some issues. And so that is where we're at, is that there have been technical issues and then we're just moving forward from that. A faster start, which is not surprising. We were told that would happen, that because it's an election year, that people are going to want to get done. We have a date set for March 22nd, and I think most people aren't wanting to drag their feet, and I think we'll get things wrapped up. But that even talks, when we're talking about JFAC, they made huge sweeping changes. And I know that this session isn't supposed to be about that, but it will affect the education budget. Totally. And so that whole idea of just passing all of these maintenance budgets and then everything else, the line items would come up separately. You can see why there are people on both sides of that. The people who say, that's great, pass those maintenance budgets and we'll just get out of here. And people who are saying, wait a minute, those line item issues are, we need to talk about that. And is that really what we want to do? So it sounded to me like that trying to do something new, kudos for that. But there are growing pains with that. So let's be thoughtful about that process too, especially when you're in a joint committee with senators and with representatives.
Totally. I think, first hearing about that, I'm like, oh, wow, like you said, it's something new, it's interesting. And then, you start to see maybe the cracks or maybe just the different opinions coming through. And so it'll be really interesting to see how all of that plays out and to see truly how it affects each position or each legislation that comes through. So yeah, and I'd love to chat a little bit more about that if you'd like to. We can even start the conversation a little bit with those changes, and or we can kind of, yeah. I think JFAC is obviously a really big conversation when it comes to, we're going to talk a little bit about the governor's budget and the education aspects of it. So if you wanted to share with our audience just a kind of a quick summary of what the change that JFAC is putting in this year.
Well, one change that I think bears repeating from last year that I'm not sure everyone was aware of is that it used to be that budgets could pass with not a majority of senators or a majority of House members on board. And they changed that last year to say they're going to be separate votes. And so there needs to be a majority of senators and a majority of House members from JFAC for those budgets to go forward. And what they were hoping from that is that more attention is placed on those budgets on the front end so that people can feel like they can vote for them, and that they don't have these showdowns on the House floor of suddenly, we don't have enough to pass the budget. So that was a huge component. Then this year, this idea of budgets tend to wait till the very end, and then people feel like that we either hurry through them or they get held hostage. There's a lot of strategy that goes on in this building, and this is only my 4th year here, and I still, it's a fearsome, sometimes wonderful, sometimes just fraught with great anxiety about watching how people work things through certain committees or not, or hold different budgets or different bills. That if you want this through, then this needs to happen. And I was raised to be a more straightforward person than that. And so it's been challenging for me to bear in mind, that's part of the process, and you jolly well better get it figured out, because that's how the rules are, that's how it works its way through the system. So JFAC decided, besides that the 2 votes, that they would let's look at these maintenance budgets to say, this is what it would take. This is what your budget was last year. And if we tack on this percentage to say, we understand that you might be serving more people, or just cost of living, things cost more, even at paper just costs more. So we'll tack on this percentage, then we'll pass those basic maintenance budgets. And then all those other budgets they'll go back through those again, but now they're the line item things. Well, there are people now on JFAC who at first they thought it was a good idea, and they felt like it was, their game. Let's try it. Let's see how it works. But as it starts to unroll, starting to feel like there might be unintended consequences here that we weren't, that maybe aren't so positive. Like that some of the items that are in the basic maintenance budget are things that deserve some scrutiny, and we need to look at that. And maybe some of the line item things are actually constitutionally mandated and should be in that maintenance budget, not as line items. So you can see what a tangled weaving web that has become. And so they're in process, the chair, co-chairs Horman and Grow are going to be working through that process with their membership, and with some of the others, the rest of us chiming in and saying, have we thought about this, and what about that? And change, like I said, I'm not a person who thinks we should do things how we've always done them. On the other hand, there's usually a reason why things were done in a certain way, and if you just do a wholesale change, it can be pretty, unexpected changes.
Yeah, I think you worded it perfectly. It's really an interesting concept, and I've only been in this position. I've been in the chamber for 4 years, but I've been in this position for 3 years, and every year I'm like, wow, this is something new, or just, personalities are new, or certain bills bring out different aspects of certain situations. And every bill, there's, if this passes, it might be good, but then it might affect this, or, it's so complex. And the work that you all do is truly incredible. And I'm sure it's frustrating at times, but it's really amazing just all the work that gets done in the session. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. I think it'll be really interesting to see how JFAC does with that and how all the different, I mean, no budget is the same. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, and what appears on the surface might be one thing, but like you said, as you start peeling away layers, all of a sudden you think, oh, or somebody says, well, have you considered that if this, then that, and there's a domino effect, as you were alluding to. And I think those are all those things that they just bear a slow down, take a breath, reset, and let's work our way through a rational process that everybody can feel like we did our due diligence. We know we're going to have a balanced budget. That is just never a question. We know that's a constitutional mandate. So then let's work backwards from there.
Yeah. Wow. I need to be told to slow down at least 100 times during the day. So I think that's really great advice. Well, with the start of the budget, I'd love to kind of dive into the governor's proposal and talk a little bit more about the education aspects of that. So in the proposal, he requested $2 billion be allocated for school building and facility maintenance. With that possible added benefit of property tax relief. So can you share a little bit about the current needs of these schools and how this proposal will affect our local communities?
Certainly. Well, I think most people live in districts, so you know these situations, that there are districts who have never passed a bond, haven't even tried because they don't have the tax base to do it. There are schools that have continually passed bonds, but now are starting to find it increasingly difficult to get that supermajority. And especially as we look at what the demographics of people who are moving in, and so many who are moving in don't have children, and maybe don't necessarily feel the same compelling interest to support the public schools because they don't have children or grandchildren in the schools. And so that was an interesting, this is an aside, but an interesting thing that came out of the Boise State study that Dr. May will be presenting, is just that, or I guess he already did, but just that idea of the change in our population, the growth, and just that maybe that has a larger influence or impact on that supermajority. Then it was always tough, and now it's even tougher. And then you have schools that are over 50 years old, and the governor used that description that just made everybody's stomach kind of turn about the raw sewage going underneath the cafeteria. And it's just, there are varying states of decay. The Office of Performance, they came out with a report that was several years ago. We reopened it last year in House Ed and kind of went through it again. And I just have this strong feeling that if we are asking for these reports to be done, and maybe we don't like what the result of it is, but if the result is that we have schools that are in danger, that aren't safe, that are by every year, nothing stays the same. Everything, once you've built it, it just starts to decay. And so there are schools that have done a great job of maintenance and have levies and bonds that are able to keep those up, and then other schools who just cannot or have not. And so the governor was really looking at, how do we reward the people who have done what they needed to do, not overly reward people who haven't. At the same time, recognize that on a scale of 1 to 10, you have schools that are more than 50 years old and in serious need, or overcrowding here, declining enrollment here, but you still need to have a building with the lights on and that's functional. So that's what the governor was looking at, and saying that he understood H292 that we passed last year, and that whole point that it was going to eventually help the schools. But even Representative Monks, who's the chair of Rev and Tax, he said on the floor, he knows it's not going to get there soon enough. So Governor Otter's idea, or Governor Little's idea, is, tell you how old I am. His idea was, how do we get that money to the schools sooner? and allow them to be able to do the things that they need to do. And so that's why he was looking at, there's 292, we get that, and it's over time going to help. But then here's this other revenue stream that if we can, that will get a more immediate bonding ability and a more immediate bang for the bucks for the schools to be able to start doing what they need to be doing, so that we can keep the schools in good working order, which is our constitutional mandate.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's so many aspects to it, and conversations of, what schools are able to maintain things and what schools are having a little bit of a harder time. But it truly comes down to, how are our kids learning? Like, what buildings are they learning in? Do they feel safe? Does it feel clean and situated in there, or do they feel unsafe? And I think that's will only help our kids' education going forward if they know that their school buildings are being taken care of. And that's a huge part of life too. You should want the things that you're in to be taken care of. So it's hopefully another life lesson for these kids to see that maintenance being maintained. And hopefully I think it'll be a really interesting conversation, and we're excited to see where that goes.
And the one thing that I probably should put in there too is the governor is very clear about, he is sensitive to people that you hear it all the time. Even when I was helping with the building projects in Caldwell School District and the Valley View School District, is, well, we don't need a Taj Mahal. We need just and so that committee that Senator Lent was one of the chairs of, that just looking at school facilities and just the idea of, how do we say, if it's for certain sizes, maybe we have building plans that the state actually owns, so that we can that they don't have to pay for that the cost of the architectural fee and that sort of thing, or at least it's limited because you have your basic plan and this is what and it's not looking at a AstroTurf field playing surfaces or some, fancy schmancy thing that people say, hey, those are my tax dollars and you need to. So the governor did have, that was part of his how he was looking at how they were going to budget and what you could bond for and that sort of thing. A very thoughtful approach, I thought. And where we are now is that it's in negotiations. So the 292 and what the governor said, and there's somewhere in between there that you hope is a sweet spot that everybody can say, okay, that works. That does what we wanted it to do, and still gives property relief. Property tax relief, because I do know that whether it comes through the form of sales tax being used, it's still property tax relief if you're not bonding. So we'll see how that all shakes out in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Are you seeing the temperatures pretty good on that? It seems like people are willing to have those conversations, or do you think there's a lot of pushback or right now?
I think that we don't get to see the half of it, but I do know that there have been ongoing meetings, and there are people who would like to be on a fly on the wall. I'm not one of those people. I hash it out, duke it out, then bring it out, and let's all take a gander at it. So, but I know they are talking, and there's bartering going on. That's negotiations are in progress.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's some conversations there. I like to be a fly on the wall, but probably not all of them. Just give me the facts and we'll go from there.
Right.
Well, we appreciate that breakdown. Thank you for sharing that. So I wanted to chat about the charter school bill a little bit. It's obviously, it has over 30 pages, so it's definitely a pretty complex bill. Can you tell us what the biggest changes will be in that bill? And I know you guys were just chatting about this morning. So
we did. And I really was appreciative that when we did the first RS, I purposely left a week that we weren't going to, so that people, because like you said, it is a absolute total rewrite. And part of me, again, I would put the context that when you've had 26 years of working on charter school law, those things start getting cobbled together, and pretty soon it is kind of a mess. And so they were trying to, first and foremost, make it user-friendly. And it's a one-stop shop. Here, everything you need to know about charter school law, here it is in this section. And so from that perspective, I can't think of anybody better than Alex Adams to be leading that charge, because he's the king of red tape reduction and trying to make something comprehensible, easily understood, just clean it up and put something together that recognizes that there are some charter schools that are just going gangbusters financially, academically, and do we really want to have them on such a short leash? Or are we at a place where we can say, you know what, you've proven your stuff, and so we're going to allow for a longer authorized time for you and not hold you, that you still have to have a performance agreement, you still need to be making it, you still need to be having the things in place where there are checks and balances, but we're not going to have you up for reauthorization every 5 years. It might be up to 12. At the same time, how do we allow there to be pilot charter schools that are on a shorter leash to say, we're willing to let you put things in place. Your application has met all the metrics, but we're going to keep you at a little shorter authorization period so that we can take a deeper look and a more at the scrutiny. You're going to be scrutinized, and we're going to be looking at all the facets of what you're trying to do. That just makes sense, right? That if you're trying something new, it 3 years, 6 years for general, 3 years for pilot charters, and then up to the 6 year or 12 years for those charter schools that have demonstrated high performance, meeting what they said they were going to do. And then I guess another big piece of that is that there are some charter schools, I think of Bloom, for example, that they have done such a masterful job of truly training their principals, the administrator, so that by the time that they're ready to open that school, they are firing on all cylinders and have shown excellent results. And so how do we allow them maybe a smoother path without so many of they've already shown that they know what the hurdles are, they know what the performance agreements need to be, they have those things in place, and so make it easier for them to replicate, and also make it easier for them maybe to gather them together so that there maybe is less administrative costs because they're gathered together. I will say that is a piece, though, that makes some people a little uncomfortable. So I would suspect that people on House Ed, Senate Ed will be watching to see how all that rolls out. And there are things that just make people kind of nervous. And one of the things that made us nervous was the idea of that if they're public charter schools, but now we're going to put them completely off on their own under their own self-governing agency, but they're public schools. That just didn't make sense for some of us. And so we asked them to put them back under the umbrella of the State Board of Education. And so that was a reason that RS came back, was rewritten, and was reintroduced today, a whole new RS with that change. So I would tell you that those are probably the biggest changes, and we're waiting to see too. We feel like that they're under the State Board of Ed. We think that most of the IDAPA code will still apply, but we're waiting to see what specifically will not be, would they not be held to under, if they're still under that umbrella of the State Board of Ed. So I think that's a pretty decent synopsis of the changes.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. You actually made that bill seem a little more simple. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's not, but I'm glad it felt that way. Yeah, I think today we had one of the members say that he would be far more comfortable if we would have kind of done this more piecemeal. But I kind of see the wisdom in just biting the bullet and just, because like we had, how we started this conversation off, there's rarely anything you change here that doesn't have a cascading effect. So maybe look at it in its totality and then know that we can come back to it. And if we miss the mark, I am well aware that I'm not the smartest person, and that we need to be willing to take another look at things and admit that didn't go how we thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned too, I think faster start allows for conversations to be had and then come back and then come back again. It's like a little bit more time to really hash them out and make sure that they're coming with all the aspects to it. So, well, thanks for that. That's a really interesting bill. I'll be intrigued to see how that goes. And yeah, thanks
Well,
for
Thursday's the big day, so we'll have the whole period of time has been set aside for that hearing, and we'll see how many people sign up, and if we need to make it longer, I'm willing to do that, because I do want to hear what the public has to. I've had people, this is one where I've had people, constituents and not, who have sent me emails and said, what about this? What about that? And so it's very good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll be listening on Thursday. We're getting some nice compliments. We got a nice compliment from Michael and from Idaho Ed News, so we appreciate hearing from them. We will head on to our next question then. So school choice has been a discussion in the legislature for quite some time now, working through school vouchers, education savings account, and then now this year there's a tax credit bill. What's your perspective on those bills, and how do you see school choice playing out this session?
Yep, that's pretty interesting. It probably says something that these, the tax credit, well, it was written in such a way that it would go through rev and tax and not come through House Education. I think we have made it that we have people on House Ed, and I'm one of them, who is very concerned about the idea of what is our constitutional yardstick? What is it that we're being asked to do? And it is to have a system that is thorough and that it develops and maintains common, free, public schools. So when I took the oath to uphold the Constitution, it's not just the parts I like. It's you have to buy on to the whole deal. And to me, that is a huge thing. And I know there are people who say, well, she acts like the public schools are perfect. I spent 32 years there. I know they weren't. I mean, I'm in it, so how could it be perfect, right? And and we were trying to do the best we could by students, by parents, and by teachers, and in that order. And so I think that this is the concern. And the other concern was better get rid of that the pesky Blaine amendment, because there are people who want to say that that's dead letter law, but clearly it's not. And I had asked this 2 years ago and was told with the then AG's office. So there's been a change in AGs, but I haven't heard anything different. And that is that once you open the door and you allow funds to go to private schools, then there is no discriminating, and it doesn't matter. And I know people make fun and they'll say, yeah, well then, we'll open the Hogwarts School of witchcraft and sorcery or whatever. And I just think, well, I don't think that's going to happen. On the other hand, it does open doors that you didn't anticipate. And we only have to look to other states to see what has happened there. The things that people say will never happen, they do happen, because people being people, we tend to want what we want. And when we get opportunity, we take it. And so if we want to start opening more church schools, that can happen. If we, this idea that the money follows the child. And I think, well, but a lot of those children are not in the public schools now. They are already their parents are paying for them to go to these private schools. So what we've seen in other states is the money isn't following those children out. It's taking money from the students who are already in public schools and following them out. And so for me, it's just been so challenging to think, whether you call it a tax credit or a voucher or educational savings account, when you start looking at what it's doing to the budgets in these other states, 900 million more and Arizona is looking like they're going to have over 300 million deficit by the end of the year. You look at what's happening in other states like Indiana as well, Florida. It isn't that I don't think that every student deserves to be in a school that suits them best. But when you start saying that public dollars are going to start supporting that, what other personal choices that we make that are, well, I don't drive on that part of the road, so I want my taxes that would go to that to come to me so that I can put them into the road that I do drive on. Well, that's ridiculous. I know. That's what I'm saying, is I think that this whole thing of wanting to believe that it's not going to blow up the budget and that we're not going to just have two separate systems of public and private schools that the public is supporting. I have yet to be convinced that that's not exactly what's going to happen, because I'm just looking at Indiana, looking at Arizona. And I went to Arizona. I listened to the good senator who was really promoting that bill. And I'm just thinking, I wonder what he's saying now, because the very things that they said wouldn't happen, it's happening. So Idahoans, I know that's a catchy phrase for the money to follow the child, but I think the money is public. They are public funds, and that we need to shore up what we've got now. And if we have buildings that are crumbling, we're trying to keep the lights on. We need to take care of the students that are in our public schools now. I just don't see how now diverting money to another system is in any way helpful, in any way conservative, and and doesn't follow our Constitution. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. All of this is so interesting. And as a homeschooler, growing up homeschooled, it's such an interesting conversation, because it never was a conversation in my house that public money should be ours. It was always, we pay taxes and this is how it is, but we want you home and we want to teach you. And I loved that, but I also love public education. I think it's so needed and such a beautiful opportunity for us to take care of our communities, especially if there's families that aren't able to have the opportunities to do otherwise, or maybe this is just the perfect opportunity for them too. So I'll be intrigued to see how this conversation continues to go on. I'm sure it'll be a conversation we hear just, throughout every session. I'm sure it'll be something that.
Oh, I'm sure you will. And I will say the homeschool folks that I've talked to really are wary of. They just don't want any government money, because as soon as you take it, there should be scrutiny, there should be oversight, there should be rules and regulations for how that money is spent and what is the return on that investment. And they want no part of that. The homeschoolers that I talk to really do not. We are doing just fine on our own. Thank you very much. We do not want state money, and we do not want your scrutiny. Yeah. So that's been an interesting component as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that perspective, and we'll be interested to see where it goes, especially just during this session. So, well,
me too.
Yeah, yeah, always interesting. Well, Idaho launch has been another huge topic. Last year, it came through during the special session, and it's been a big priority for the Boise Metro Chamber. So for any of our listeners not familiar, Idaho Launch is a grant program that covers 80% or up to $8,000 for high school graduates to enroll in a education or training program that would align with a in-demand career for Idaho. Can you tell us a little bit about how the program is going and how you think or what you anticipate will happen this session?
That's a good question that I'm not going to be able to answer fully, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And so Representative McCann is on that Workforce Development Council, and so she keeps me kind of appraised of what's going on. And then Megan Blanksema, who was the Representative Blanksema, who's our majority person, she sponsored the bill. And so she's been keeping very close tabs on what's going on there. And I was asking her how she was feeling about it. And she said, well, we're going to watch that first rollout. She feels like that they have a multi-step process in place that she feels very comfortable with. And this is what I would say. If Representative Blanksma is comfortable with the process, I'm going to be comfortable with the process, because she's very details are important to her. So she said they just started off with any job that has 50 or more openings, which must have been huge. But then, was there a certified program attached to it? Because if there wasn't, there's no money, there's no place for the money to go. So that just made sense. And then she said, then we have to realize that money is good for 2 years. So it's going to people who have scholarships, students that have scholarships and that sort of thing, they're going to be using that because they're going to want to finish, because if they don't, they have to pay it back. Now I asked her, well, how do they pay it back? And that process is still has yet to be worked out, because I just don't know how that would work. So, and apparently they're working through that as well. So right now, what they're really looking at is the funding component. And that's why, again, we're back to JFAC and looking at all those budgets and, what we want and what we get could be different things. But the hope is that the funding will be there and we can watch that first rollout. It was such a remarkable success story of just students imagining that going on and getting training and a better paying job, that it was within their reach. Some of those stories have just been truly heartwarming, and I just feel like that investment in our young people is going to return to us 100-fold.
I am obsessed with this idea and this program. I think it's truly amazing to see. I mean, the governor's office, Representative Blanksma, the Idaho Development Workforce Council, there's been so many people doing such amazing work to get this word out. And the stories of all the kids, I mean, I think over 12,000 applicants so far for this program has been amazing. And as a high school graduate or an Idahoan high school graduate, I would have loved this opportunity to say, oh, what's an in-demand career? What will Idaho need? Because I obviously didn't leave Idaho. So, and I don't have any intentions to leave Idaho. So I think
we are glad to hear that.
Yeah. I think it's so beneficial to the kids and to their families that don't want to lose them to a different state, and then to our state in general. It's really amazing to see that this could be a full circle of how to keep our workforce strong and our families connected. So we're excited to keep seeing that. And yeah, back to JFAC, hopefully everything goes well. And this is something that we can provide to our high school graduates.
Well, and I would just say along those lines that I know there are folks who think, oh, it doesn't matter if I email or if I text or if I come talk to somebody but it is very different when you're talking to someone and you're looking them in the eyes, and it's easy to villainize each other because we don't think the same, like on tax credit. There are people who just, they actually say they hate me because of how I feel about the tax credits or vouchers or whatever it is. And I just think, well, you might want to sit down and let's just have a conversation. And I think you would find out that there are no horns. I'm not a mean-spirited person. It isn't that I don't care about kids. I care very much about kids. That has been a focus of my life for 32 of my working years that I have appreciated and I am thankful for. And so I just think this idea that we need to set aside our differences long enough to meet each other as person to person, a caring person and a caring person, a thoughtful person and a thoughtful person. Come, let us reason together. Let us think these things through. Am I entitled to my opinions and to why my thought processes? I think I am, but if you can show me, show me what I'm missing or where I'm wrong. This is what every legislator, there are only 105 of us. You guys have us outnumbered by a long ways. Come in, let your voice be heard, make sure that people are thinking of, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And maybe some people have thought about everything, but I'm not one of those people. I appreciate somebody's giving me other ways of looking at things or,
It's such a great reminder. I think, especially with social media these days, we've really created villains out of so many people. And then the things that you say, would you go and say that in person? Comments are so easy to just click away. And then in person, you're like, would you really say that?
And some people would, because
that is true.
They've said it. Yeah. And my favorite, though, is when they leave me a not very happy phone message. And at the end, they'll say, God bless you. And I think, well, he has. And
yeah, thank you. But yeah, I think, and it's such a great reminder to know that we're just humans that have our own opinions and our own knowledge. And we're only going to grow when we can hear from other people and we can hear different perspectives. And if we're doing it, my old history teacher, we had him come in and teach us some history because that wasn't my mom's favorite topic to teach. But he said, when they get louder, you get quieter. And it's such a big reminder to just be kind and calm and to create a conversation, because yes, you can have passion and you can be angry, but you can do it in a respectful way. And that person might walk away and say, wow, I really still disagree, but they opened my eyes to this. I didn't even think of it like this. So we are really big supporters and trying to make sure that you all hear from people, hear from your constituents. And that's a really huge reminder. So we appreciate hearing that from you.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because I keep track of all of it, if it's for or against, and if they're from District 11 or outside of District 11. And then I also keep in mind that these are the people who are paying attention and are willing to interact with you in that way. And so I try to make a real point of you got to keep your ear to the ground too, because just because somebody is loud doesn't necessarily mean they're the majority. And just because they're a majority you always have to be balancing all those things out. Yeah. What does the Constitution say? And just because it seems it's good for me, is it good for everybody? And do we really want a nanny state, or are we really going to uphold that we believe that local control, the government closest to the people, is what makes the most sense? So those are, those guiding principles, but to listen with intention. And the intention is to first to understand, and then to be understood, and then to be willing to work with somebody to come up with a better solution that either one of you have on your own. That whole synergistic process I truly believe in. And then in just all ways to have integrity. You know who you are, you know who you answer to at the end of the day. And that's, you have to bear in mind, we get 2 years to do whatever good we can do, a space of time. That's it.
Yeah.
So do the best you can, and make sure you can hold your head up and know that you felt like you did the right things for the right reasons, and you did it in the right way. I think that, and I think that people watching us helps hold us, at least some of us, to that standard of a high standard of how we're going to relate to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What great words. I think we'll just end it at that. I couldn't say it better myself.
Well, you are most kind. Thank you for being so patient and getting the technology up and rolling. And
oh my gosh, yeah, no problem. We appreciate you sticking it out with us, and thank you to our. First of all, I really want to thank you for your time, for starting this a little in a stressful way. So hopefully you can go debrief after this and take a quick walk or something before you got to get back to work. But we really appreciate you and all you're doing for our community and for our state, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Well, I really appreciate Boise Metro Chamber, and Bobby Joe is someone who I just dearly love and respect, and it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Well, we are all loving Bobby Joe as well. So, well, thank you to our sponsor, Optum Idaho, along with all of our media partners, Idaho Ed News, Idaho Capital Sun, Idaho Press, and Idaho Statesman. Please tune in for our next legislative update. It'll be a transportation edition with Senator Den Hartog and Representative Green. Thanks, Representative Yamamoto, and we'll see you all soon.